Good evening or good afternoon, and welcome to everyone on Love 101 FM and Facebook page and YouTube live. This is Family Time. I'm your host, Joan Pinkney. Family Time is about your issues and your relationships, your at home family, your community family, your global family, and of course, however you want to coordinate your family members. Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries, which aims to enable healthy families and which lead to healthy nation. So stay with us and please connect with us via all our social media platforms. Friend us on Facebook at FLM Family Life Ministries. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Family Life Ministries FLNJA, and on Instagram. Keep up with what's happening at Simply FLMJA. While Family Time is a family program, we'd like to caution that it may, on the odd occasion, touch on what some may consider mature subject matters. So your discretion is advised. As I said before, and just in case you don't know my voice, I am Joan Pinkney. It is not a situation any one of us want to be in. A situation in which one has to take charge of a critically ill loved one. It's complex and requires a multidisciplinary approach. Listen, we know that the stress and demands can be overwhelming. And we know the challenges, we know the needs, we know the solutions as well. And so we're here for you, the caregiver, the family unit, and the community. And this afternoon, we will be looking at managing critical illness care. But before we get into those details, let us ask you, our listeners, and this question we will be repeating right through the program because we want you to participate. What is or what was the greatest need for you while providing care for a loved one who is or was critically ill? As the program progresses, please send us your responses to this question. And you may, of course, send the responses to our WhatsApp number, which is 876-997-3125. And you may send a text message or a voice message. Of course, we ask that you please keep the voice messages to 30 seconds and below. Or you may call our studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. You may also watch us and comment live on Love 101 Facebook and YouTube. So this evening's program promises to be wonderful, promises to be informative, because we have some very, very special guests who will be sharing with us. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Looking forward to you on the other side of the break.
Love in the morning and love 101. So come get inspired with you called love in the morning and love 101. So come get inspired with you called. Turn the radios up.
We tend to think that substance abuse and addictions are a modern day phenomenon. But what does the Bible say about the struggle? Who in the Bible had a problem with addiction and how was it dealt with? Why is there this challenge even for Christians? How does God look at addiction? Tuesday, November 12, on The Rock, join guests Minister Mark Reed and Bishop Garth Minot as they discuss the topic Substance Abuse and Addiction. That's The Rock, Tuesday, November 12 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
On the next Campus Connection, we are focusing on balancing academics and extracurricular activities. Part 2. Student life can be difficult, especially when juggling academics and extracurricular activities. However, students who participate in these activities can develop important skills, experiences, and partnerships that will help them in their academic endeavors. Join us with guests Mr. Javon Bailey, the Public Relations and Marketing Manager at Jamaica 4-H Clubs, Mr. Moya Taylor, Key Club Lieutenant Governor for Division 3, and Ms. Shania Cummings, the Key Club President at St. Catherine High. And our creative block guest, Ms. Anthony Evans, Industrial Technologist, on Tuesday, November 12 at 5:30 p.m. on the family station, Love 101. Campus Connection is brought to you by Heart NSTA Trust, Skill is Power, and TGI Fridays. At TGIF, every day is Friday. That's Campus Connection, this Tuesday, November 12 at 5:30 p.m. only on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the program Family Time. The time is 5:39 p.m. We are privileged, really privileged, to have Dr. Kanchana Bandara. She is a general practitioner and palliative care physician. And with her is Ms. Patrice Dwyer, a holistic, multi-potentiate death doula and end-of-life planner. We want to welcome these ladies very, very specially. Dr. Bandara describes herself as a healer and a storyteller. And Ms. Dwyer, her clients describe her as a transformation therapist. So just by the profile of these ladies, we know we are in for a wonderful evening. Or, well, it's almost evening, it's still afternoon, but we look forward to going through into the evening with them. So let me say, welcome, ladies. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And our listeners are sitting on the edge of their seat, waiting on particularly some of these titles that I'm hearing. They're like, what is that? And so we look forward to you sharing with us. So listeners, we look forward to your responses to the question. What is or what was the greatest need for you while providing care for a loved one who was or is critically ill? We want you to send your text messages or your voice messages to our WhatsApp message or WhatsApp number rather, which is 876-997-3125. We ask you to keep your messages, your voice messages, to 30 seconds or less. We also invite you to watch us on and comment on our Facebook and YouTube. And or you may feel more comfortable calling us on our studio lines, and that those numbers are 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. So we are anxious to get it going. And so let me remind those that are just joining us that our topic this evening is managing critical illness care. So let's get going. Ladies, please tell us who would be considered to be in need of a critical illness care. Perhaps Dr. The Doc wants to start us off, please.
Good up.
Yeah, okay. So I think we could say that a critical illness is something that threatens life or limb or capacity to function in a very broad sense. And I think the definitions will vary depending on the context in which you're talking about. But we're talking about an illness that requires intensive medical attention as well as healthcare needs that are more than just taking a Panadol, drinking lots of fluids, and getting some rest. I
Right.
think I'd leave it there.
Right. And are we
Agree?
saying
Yeah.
that it can happen anywhere, at home, in the
Yep.
hospital?
hmm
Okay.
And it can happen at
Where?
home. You go to the hospital and then you come back home, and you still have to deal with
Absolutely.
that critical illness.
But certainly under the care of the practitioner, the medical practitioner. So let me grab Miss Dyer, not grab as in physically grab now, but let me ask, what are some expected challenges in looking at critical illness care?
Well, in
Dial,
Jamaica, can you hear me?
I'm hearing you well.
Okay, so here in Jamaica, one of the main things that we tend to speak about when we have to face healthcare issues is money. So we think about
Mm,
finances, but one of the things we don't often think about is decision making. That's a big part of it. And the
right,
decision making beforehand, which I'm sure we'll get to at some point in the conversation,
right,
but decision making beforehand so that in case you have to be in a situation where you are faced with something serious and need critical care, you already know and your family already has some idea of who you are, what it is that you want in situations like that. Um, Support systems are important. Medical
right.
teams are important, and I stress the word team, because
Yep.
a lot is
Mm,
happening here in terms of care that doesn't involve a team approach. And you mentioned
right,
earlier in the introduction, multidisciplinary team approach, and that's essentially what we need, a team, and a team that can effectively communicate with each other. So I think those
all
are
right,
some of the main things that we don't often think about that we
right.
need. And of course, there's insurance. Health insurance doesn't hurt
Mm-hmm.
a situation like that as well.
Absolutely. Let me go back to the title that I have describing you, a holistic, multi-potentate death doula and end-of-life planner. I almost had to gasp for breath.
It's a lot. It's a
Tell
lot.
me
But
a little bit of what that is before we move on.
so essentially, the holistic, multi-potentialite part is the space that
Move
just
on.
kind of brings a lot of the things I do together,
Am I
right?
losing
So
her?
no, I'm here. Can
I'm
you hear
hearing.
me?
I'm hearing.
Your internet is we're having some issues with it. Go right ahead. I think you're back.
Yeah, man, I'm
Go
here.
ahead, Miss Dial.
Yeah, I was
Dwyer,
saying that
sorry.
the holistic,
Go right
multi-potential
ahead.
piece just really puts everything I do into a package, basically. But I do a number of different things to support people along healthcare
Okay.
journeys. Um, I am what's called a patient
Okay.
navigator, and that is someone who helps people to navigate the
Mm,
healthcare system when facing serious illness and facing just
mm,
challenges with health. I'm also a lymphedema
right.
therapist. That's a whole other topic for another show. But lymphedema is something that
Mm,
we in Jamaica call elephantitis. That's another story.
yes, yes, yes.
I support people in cancer care in various ways. I'm a cancer coach as well. And I work in the
Right.
space of palliative care and end of life care. So that death doula title that people always think is so mysterious is also part of that.
Mm, wow. Thank you for that. You know, when I was at primary school, that you always look for the more popular girl to ask if you could be her friend. But
Mhm.
you're one of those that I would want you to be my friend. So can you be
Really?
my friend?
Well, that's interesting.
Yes. All right, but doctor, can you tell us why is it necessary to manage critical illness care?
Why is it necessary to manage critical illness care? Well, I think, a
Yeah.
critical illness can have one of two main outcomes, right? You can die suddenly from it, in which case the care is
Right.
really for the people that are left behind, or you can be left without being able to function at full capacity going forward.
Mm.
And people are multidimensional in their nature. So
Right.
we talk about management that includes not just the medical treatment, so not just a surgery or some kind of medical intervention, test, medication, but we need to look after the whole person. And Patrice mentioned things like finances, support systems, decision making, and all of those things. And I think
Right.
all of that has to come together, because when you're providing the care, it's not enough to send a patient home. So let's take an example of somebody who's had let's say a heart attack, for example, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not an uncommon thing. You have a heart attack,
Right.
you're rushed to the hospital, we save you, you're now on a bunch of medication, you may have had a medical procedure done to open the blood vessels in your heart, and now you're ready to go home, right?
Right.
But it's not
Right.
just a matter of writing a prescription and sending you home, because you will need to know, okay, when you go home, what can you do? What can you not do? What are the
Right.
things?
Right.
How are you going to do the things that you're going to do? How do you take these medications? What kind of problems might you anticipate, and how are you going to deal with that? And then there is a whole aspect of the emotional and mental um,
Ah,
repercussions of
absolutely.
having had a heart attack, right?
Mm.
Because now suddenly, you are faced with the fact that you have to face your heart failed you for even a few minutes.
Right.
It couldn't manage, right? How do you deal with that? It's a reminder that we're all mortal, right? And we can die
Absolutely.
at any minute. So there's a whole host of things that need to be dealt with around that. And we often
All right,
try
before
to
you go to the end, Doc, let's take a break. Please hold the thought, and we're going to ask you to expand a little, either of you, on what is a care bundle. Yeah? Listeners, I hope so far you've been enjoying the discussion, and we hope that you will stay with us. You have to stay with us. You can't go nowhere. Remember to respond to the question: what is or what has been the greatest need for you while providing care for a loved one who was critically ill? We look forward to hearing from you. Remember, you can send us a text message or a voice message to our WhatsApp line 876-997-3125. Be sure, if you can, watch us on Facebook and YouTube, or call our studio lines at 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328. We'll be right back to continue the discussion, so please go nowhere.
What gift gives you joy?
Renovating my home.
Finance your personal loan with CIBC Caribbean and use your funds to enjoy a dream holiday, home renovations, or more. Plus, we'll gift you 50% off the application fee and the chance to win one of 3 cash prizes from our pot of up to $2.4 million. Visit CIBCFCIB.com/joy of giving. CIBC Caribbean, terms and conditions apply.
Love 101 invites you to set your day before it begins with midnight prayer and praise, Mondays at midnight. It's the third prayer watch, a period of much spiritual activity. You will be strengthened during this time of prayer and praise. Midnight prayer and praise is during the third watch of the night, the time to strengthen yourself spiritually and seek direction. Time to command your day. Midnight prayer and praise, Mondays at midnight through to 3 a.m. early Tuesday morning. 3 hours to set your day with prayers offered in each hour. Midnight Prayer and Praise is on the family station, Love 101.
The report is out.
What report?
The Constitutional Reform Committee's report of recommendations
Recommendations on what?
on how we move from a monarchy to a republic, of course.
So what's in it?
The creation of the office of president and changes to our parliament. Yes, man. It also includes a new qualification for membership in parliament. I know you want to see that one.
Read the full report at roadtorepublic.mlca.gov.jm.
We are on the road to republic.
Christmas in is the
Makes every day better by Christmasing with you. You can enjoy the best prepaid mobile plans and big Christmas winnings. Win data and credit instantly every time you activate any unlimited prepaid plan. Unwrap your SMS message to claim your instant gift and get automatically entered for a chance to win cash, grocery vouchers, and smartphones every week and a $500,000 grand prize. Christmasing is wrapped up in winning. Download the Top Up Flow app or visit topupflow.com to activate and win today. Offer ends January 2, 2025. Conditions apply.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Family Time. The time is 5:53 in the afternoon. Family Time is sponsored by Family Life Ministries, and Family Life Ministries is situated at 1 Cecilia Avenue. We are here to serve you well with any kind of issue that you may have. And so if you need any kind of psychological attention, intervention, please feel free to call our offices at 876-920-1034 or 876-926-8101. We have been having a wonderful discussion and with our guests, Dr. Dr. Bandara and Miss Patrice Dwyer. And so we've been talking about managing critical illness care. Dr. Bandana was just about to give us some insight on what care bundle is, and I'm not sure whether you had completed the point that you're making about the management of critical care, but you may go right ahead in that regard.
Well, I was actually going to hand it over to Patrice to talk about the care bundle.
Okay.
But what I was going to point out was that I think we tend to separate people into their physical, their mental, their emotional, psychological, whatever. But in real life, in a real person, you really can't separate all of those things. And each thing interacts, each aspect interacts with the other. And so I think that care bundle is something that addresses all of those needs. And there's no one single person who can address all of the needs of another human being. And this is why we need a team approach, and we need to have folks who are flexible and willing to work together and communicate about what a person may need when they have a critical illness.
Right.
But Patrice, I think you can probably talk more to the bundle than I can.
Sure, go right ahead.
Well, you know, I mean, the definition of care bundle essentially, you know, it's a set of scientific-based clinical practices that come together to support somebody either with a special condition or a group of people with conditions, right? The challenge in our system is that a lot of these things we may not have access to. So we have to kind of broaden the definition of a care bundle as we think about, you know, similar to what Dr. Bandara was just speaking about, holistic care, essentially, ensuring that people have a clear understanding of the steps that need to be taken that could give them access to the quality care that they need when facing certain serious illnesses. And that's something very important that we need to think about here.
Absolutely. But just in a 30 seconds or so, could you share with us, both of you, both ladies, what has your experience been having interacted with persons who are offering critical care to their loved ones? What are some of the needs that perhaps they didn't identify, but you having, you looking on, have identified in the process?
Well, I'll jump in. I mean, not just in terms of people that I've supported on journeys with healthcare, but my own family and
Mm,
issues that I've seen as someone who works in the space of giving care and then turning around and having to support a
mm,
family member who's going through a healthcare crisis. So a few years
wow.
ago, my mother had a stroke. That was a sudden event. And that led to a lot of different challenges that we had to deal with. So when I spoke to decision making as one of the things that is critical, it's important because in situations like that, if you have a loved one who can't speak for themselves in
Mm-hmm.
that moment, do you really know what they want and what their
Yeah,
wishes are for their health
yeah,
care? And so having more conversation and creating more advanced care plans here in Jamaica is something we need to focus on. I'll give Dr.
absolutely.
Bandar her
Absolutely.
piece of the 30
Yes,
seconds.
thank you.
Yeah, I think for me as well, I have a similar story. What got me into this was that my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer in 2006. And the two things that I felt were most needed was one, physicians who were comfortable talking to somebody who had a terminal illness, because
Mm,
they all talked about, oh, you know, you have a tumor, and oh, this is the treatment is chemotherapy, radiation, this, that, whatnot. But they never addressed the person that was there, right?
mm,
And I think that's something that's missing in our there are doctors who do it, but talking about death and dying is not something we're comfortable with as physicians.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that for me was one. And then the other thing, which is what led me into the community-based practice that I do, which is home visits,
Mm,
is that we had a really difficult time getting somebody to come to the house to see him when he was
mm,
too weak to be moved,
wow.
right?
Wow.
So, that's something that is very, very, that's a situation that many of us in Jamaica find ourselves in, and
Right. Right.
they don't have the wherewithal, or they don't know how to get somebody to come to the house.
Absolutely.
So
Well, let me
those two
just pause here on behalf of Jamaica and say thank you both for your services. And whether you get a tips or whether you get a whole bundle of monies, it's really not enough to even pay you, because it's more than just paying you monetarily. It's recognizing that, and I hear it, and I'm sure the listeners are hearing it, the passion, the energy behind what you do is, I have to do it even if it is not, and even though if those things don't come. So I want to really pause and say thank you so much for giving back, particularly in this area where care is so well needed. And I know I have all the listeners clapping and saying amen. So, can you imagine a situation without guided management of critical illness care of a loved one? People with critical illnesses have many needs. Comprehensive care for critical ill patients usually requires a systems based approach and integration of complex information. All the things that we won't think of that we need until we need them. So I want us to delve a little bit, ladies, into the the needs and of course the solutions, because it's one thing to talk about the needs, but then we need to say how do we then sort it out, how do we find a solution to them. We're going to take a break in just now because of the time, but we want to come back to really talk through the needs and solutions. So you can begin to contemplate, because we know we think of right off the bat the psychological needs, the social needs, and so on. And as Dr. Bandana mentioned, that sometimes, Dr. Bandara mentioned, that sometimes, unfortunately, medical doctors and other persons who are involved don't really contemplate the other kinds of care, which are really very important. So we're going to be going into a break. It's 6 o'clock, and we want to take a break now. So we ask you not to go anywhere. We want you to continue, and we are still looking for those questions and those comments that you may have in relation to the question that was asked, or any related question that you may want to ask that is in line with the topic. What is or was the greatest need for you while providing care for a loved one? who was critically ill. Remember to send us a text message or send us a voice message. And that number is 876-997-3125. You can send us a message as well on our Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. And if you prefer to call our studio lines on 876-968-8327 or 8 in order to participate. We want to hear from you. Where are you? Where on the day? Please send us a message so that we can respond to you. We're talking on managing critical illness care. We don't want you to miss what's coming up. We're going to the break, but please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Every Saturday, 7 p.m. to midnight on Love 101. You're invited to travel in time with music at its best. It's the Gospel Music Machine with the Gospel Music Master, Nigel Wilkinson. From your favorite choir music to Christian contemporary, a touch of reggae and the Caribbean feel.
The Gospel Music Machine with Nigel Wilkinson on
Nigel are playing the tune. Yep, the Gospel Music Master is still playing the tunes down alone. And he's definitely your music master. Saturday, 7 p.m. to midnight. You won't regret the link. It's on the family station, Love 101.
That is all I need. Oh my gosh, it's you song.
Hey, this is Vibes, and I represent what? Youth Sound.
Listen for Youth Sounds on Wednesdays at 4:15 p.m. as youths from the Jamaica Baptist Union discuss issues affecting youths and giving their youthful input on the happenings of the day.
Youth Sounds is brought to you by the Jamaica Baptist Union. It is a program of the Jamaica Baptist Union Youth Department.
Youth Sounds every Wednesday at 4:15 p.m. on the family station, Love 101. Youth Sounds.
Youth Sounds?
What do you mean by Youth Sounds? Youth Sounds. Don't know it's Youth Sound.
Youth Sound.
Welcome back to the program Family Time. My name is Joan Pinkney, and we have been talking about managing critical illness care. We have two wonderful ladies with us, Dr. Bandara and Miss Dwyer. We're so happy that they've brought their expertise and they have been sharing so well with us. We're just about to get into identifying some of the needs. Of course, them were already identified earlier, but we also want to look at solutions, because it's one thing to have a need, but how do we sort it out? How do we fix it? So, ladies, we could talk briefly about the psychological, the nutritional, with all of them, the social. We implied the family earlier, but just jump in and just share with us accordingly as it relates to need. But we want the substantive discussion in this segment to be on the solutions.
Well, I mean, I'll jump in. I spoke earlier.
Go ahead, Patrice. Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
I was saying earlier, I spoke a little bit about, resources, support. And it's a need that we figure we need. Yes. We need it, but we're not really sure, how to go about it sometimes. So I've had many people who say, yes, I have family, they'll support me, but when it boils down to it, there are certain aspects of the journey that they can't find anybody to show up for. So one of the things I say to people is that it's so important to guide your support. And what that means is sitting down, having conversation, figuring out who can do what, who is willing to do what kind of thing when you're on any of these kind of healthcare journeys. And this is not something you want to do when you're sick. Once again, this is something you want to have a conversation about beforehand, right? So if you have, two siblings and one is very good at taking you anywhere you want to go, but ask them to come into a doctor's appointment or a hospital and they're like, I can't do it. But they'll drive you there,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it may mean that you need somebody else to come with you. If you have a spouse who is the
Right.
same way, honey, I'll pay all the bills, but I can't handle certain things. It means that you need somebody to sort of like fill that gap. So that's critical. I don't think we look enough on support and holistic support and sitting down and
Yes.
making
Yes.
effective plans around ensuring that you have that. So that's key. Health literacy is a big thing. It's a big issue we have in this country. It's hard sometimes when I have clients come in for them to even describe to me where they're having discomfort.
Wow.
And imagine them sitting in front of, a doctor, a hospital, or their loved ones when they're in a situation where they're having a health challenge.
As
Hard
well.
for them in that space to be able to speak to what's happening as well. And so that's a
Right.
big issue because then people don't know questions to ask about what needs to happen next. We don't have conversations about goals of care, quality of life, all these things. And those things are a big part of this journey.
Absolutely. Yes. Dr. Bandara, I know as a psychologist, I can relate to the psychological needs. Of course, persons may have a whole lot of emotions, and to help persons not only to identify those emotions, but also how to manage them, and by virtue to cope. And we also mentioned about the medical need, but what about the social? How do you get to socialize in that context? And why is it important for social needs to be met?
So I think if by social needs you mean maintaining the social relationships that they have, like with friends
Interaction.
and work, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I think, I mean, it's we are designed, we're made to be social beings. So it is as important, those social connections are as important to us as the air that we breathe and the food that
Right.
we eat, right? So there are different ways I think that you can maintain the connections. And again, it comes with an awareness of the value of those interactions. So if you think about it, when somebody is in the hospital, your visitors are restricted,
Mm-hmm.
right? So children under a certain age cannot come in.
Right.
You can't stay beyond a certain time. And we understand why those rules are there. But when somebody is critically ill, and if they are in hospital, for example, then those are the kinds of things that we want to be sensitive about, that those
Absolutely.
interactions are important. Another thing that you would want to think about is, okay, depending on the kind of work that you do, you may not necessarily want people from work coming to visit you at home when
Right.
you are in a
Right.
vulnerable state, right?
Absolutely.
When you can't keep on proper clothes because of
Mm-hmm.
whatever is going on with you, or you're in
Right.
diapers because of whatever is going on with you. Maybe you don't want people to see you that way in that weakened state. And so we need to be kind of sensitive to that. So those are kind of the things that we need to think about when we're trying to maintain those social connections.
Absolutely.
I think allowing people to allowing the patient to kind of determine what they are ready for, I think that's a good place
Mm-hmm.
to start. And asking them what they want, the person who is actually sick, asking
Right.
them what it is that they want and what would be helpful for them. And
And
these
also,
days, I think,
go ahead.
sorry, yeah, go
Go
ahead.
ahead. No, you
I
go
was,
ahead. I thought you
I
were
was gonna
pausing.
say that there are lots of different ways that we can maintain those social connections, even if we can't necessarily physically be in a space with somebody. And I think that was one of the gifts of COVID, right? That we found all these
Yes.
other ways
Yes.
that
Yes.
we could do this. So those
Yeah.
are all things that we need to think about in terms of how we maintain our connection to family members, to our neighbors, to the people at work, our friends, and so on.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We talk about multidisciplinary or multifaceted. It really encompasses a whole gamut of areas for to maintain or to provide some kind of comfort, as it were. But let's jump into the preventions, the solutions, as it were. We look at prevention of nosocomial, I hope I did that well, or healthcare associated infections, for those of us who don't know what that means. How can we prevent those? Because this would help to form a solution to whilst you are in that particular critical care. What are some of the things that should happen to prevent that? We talk about, is the same thing as like bed sores and stuff? Is that what we're talking about? No?
No. So
Oh dear, there you
nosocomial infections, right? Nosocomial infections are actually infections you pick up in the hospital or in a healthcare facility.
Oh, okay.
And the best way to prevent those is not to end up in the hospital in the first place.
Right.
Or if you have to be in the hospital, you get out as quickly as possible. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
But that's not always possible. So this is
Yes,
part of the reason why we restrict visitors, why we require people to put on gowns or masks or whatever when you're visiting people in hospitals.
Right.
And then it is also why we have the protocols in the hospitals where nurses need to, nurses, doctors, caregivers working in the facility need to wash hands, need to wear their protective gear, and they need to, carry out the infection control measures within the hospital when you're moving from patient to patient. Another
Right.
important thing is that because we use a lot of medications in hospitals, a lot of antibiotics, a lot of those infections you pick up in a hospital are very resistant to antibiotics. So it is something that is important to keep in mind. And it's also something that one way that everybody can help to prevent those kinds of infections is to make sure that when you're given a prescription for antibiotics, you follow the instructions, and you don't get antibiotics from various sources. You
Absolutely.
get it from your doctor for a specific infection, and that way we make sure that the bugs remain
Right.
sensitive to what we need them to remain sensitive to. But that's what nosocomial infections are about, right? So
Okay.
the prevention is really, a lot of it is up to the staff in the hospital and what they have in terms of the equipment and the other equipment, basically, to prevent infection,
Right.
cross spread.
Okay. We're gonna go to another break, but I'm gonna ask, what is recumbent patient care? Ms. Doyle?
Yeah,
You take that one, Dr. Van
yeah,
Gaal.
you're teaching us things, Dr. Ping. I suspect that means patients who are confined to bed. Recumbent means lying down,
Right.
right?
Or
So
lying
I'm
down. Yes.
gonna guess that
Yes.
that is care of a patient who's in bed.
Right.
And a patient may be in bed for various reasons. And there are
Right.
some particular things that you need to keep in mind. And this is where the bed sores come in.
Right.
Because
Okay.
if you are in
Gotcha.
bed and not moving, you can end up with those kinds of things. Another thing that happens to patients who are in bed, especially if you're lying flat in the bed, is that your lungs don't work the way they're supposed to. So the lower parts of the lungs tend to collapse and fold up and accumulate the secretions, and you can get
Right.
infections that way. So that's another thing that we need to, from a medical perspective, that we need to keep in mind. And another thing is that if you're immobile for a period of time, the circulation in your legs may not be so good. You can end up with clots in the legs,
Yes.
and those
Yes.
clots can spread to your lungs, and you can actually die from that. Right?
Wow.
So those are, I think, what come to mind immediately are those three things in terms of recumbent patient care. So it's not just a matter of, okay, you have the patient in the bed and you just keep them quiet. There are a bunch of things that need to be in place to ensure that those complications don't happen, whether you're in hospital or at home.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We're going to go for another break, or final break, in fact. And when we come back, we want to talk about life after critical illness care. So you've been with your loved one. You unfortunately that person dies. What does life look like, or what should life look like, or what would you recommend for life to look like after that? So we're heading into our final break. This is family time, just in case you're just joining us. And my question would be, where have you been? You've missed a whole lot of discussions on the topic critical illness care and how to manage it. But we want you to still stay with us. This is Family Time, live on Love 101 FM, YouTube, and Facebook. And of course, Family Time is produced by Family Life Ministries. Please share. We are still waiting. We haven't seen any comment. I'm not sure what's happening, but we'll still look forward to your questions. We still look forward to your comments and to express to us what needs have you had while you are taking care of someone who is critically ill. Remember, you can send the responses to that question to our WhatsApp number, 876-997-3125. It can be a text message or it can be a voice message, and we keep it to us 30 seconds or less for the voice message. You can also send us a message on our Love 101 Facebook page and our Love 101 YouTube channel, or you may want to call us. I want to hear your voice. And those numbers to call us on are 876-968-8327 or 876-968-8328 to participate. We want to hear from you. We're heading to our final break, and we look forward to seeing a text or something from you, or perhaps you are so engrossed in the discussion that all your questions are being answered. You can tell us that your questions are being answered. So we look forward to you on the other side of the break. Soon come.
Are you looking to improve your education status or achieve a career goal? Register now with the Overseas Examinations Commission as a private candidate for January 2025 CSEC exams. Deadline is October 11, 2024. Don't miss this opportunity to achieve your academic dreams. Call us at 876-618-3721. Visit our website at overseasexams.org.jm or visit our offices in Kingston or Montego Bay. Follow us on social media at Overseas Exams. The OEC, Jamaica's Examinations Hub. Conditions apply.
Every Thursday morning, Love 101 shares with you power-packed messages, words of encouragement, and testimonies of God's miraculous power. You get all of that in the Don't Give Up broadcast, brought to you by Celebration Church at the Portmore Skating Rink in the Portmore Mall with Pastor Prophet Michael Carter. Be sure to stay tuned to Love 101 for the Don't Give Up broadcast. Get the word you need to start your day right. The Don't Give Up broadcast, Thursdays at 5:15 a.m. on the family station, Love 101. Love 101 presents the morning news Monday to Friday at 6:30 a.m. Listen as we share local and international stories, followed by a 5-minute presentation from the Caribbean News Desk.
So you want the latest news from your Caribbean neighbors? Well, tune in to the Caribbean News Desk on this your favorite radio station. A 5-minute news summary of the big stories across the region. The Caribbean News Desk, weekly mornings on this station and across the Caribbean.
It's current, it's informative, it's Love 101 FM's morning news and the Caribbean News Desk feature, 6:30 a.m. Monday to Friday on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the program Family Time. My name is Joan Pinkney, and I have been your host since 5:30 this evening. We have been talking about a very, very important topic, critical illness care, how to manage it. The time is 6:20, so we only have 10 minutes to go before we close the program. This, of course, as I said, is Family Time, brought to you by Family Life Ministries. And Family Life Ministries provides counseling for persons with various challenges from all walks of life. Please feel free to call or visit us for your counseling needs. Listeners, I'm still waiting for you to send us your question, but we want you to feel comfortable to either send it on our WhatsApp page or Love 101 Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. Our special guests have been Dr. Kanchana Bandara and Ms. Patrice Dial. And we're just on the end of the discussions, and the ladies are going to be telling us what after critical illness care. So your loved one has unfortunately passed, and you, as the caregiver, what after that? What do you do? How do you treat with yourself? Ladies, give us some tips for our listeners.
I'll jump in. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to think about, in particular, if your loved one, whether they died at home or in hospital, right? If it's a sudden illness and they die and they end up in hospital, you have to think about what's going to happen with the remains and what are some of the things that need to be practically done. And what we don't often realize is that some of the issues we have are around the practical things that need to get done. You're exhausted. You've just been through a traumatic experience with your family member, and self-care probably was not at the top of your list of things that needed to be dealt with. And so you will find that, you're tired, you're exhausted, you're stressed out, and you have to deal with paperwork. When my mother died, we had a series of 3 deaths to think about, and hers being the last one. And hers was at home. So there are things that, people need to focus on when they have a family member who's dying at home. You need to, in order to get things moving quickly, you have a doctor like Dr. Bandara on call, who you can call on to come and be there in that space with you, and help you get through some necessary paperwork to make things move along more quickly. So the whole process of what happens at the end of life is something that is important for us to have an understanding about. So that's one thing. And then, like I said, there's a critical self-care piece that goes missing. And then the planning piece, we're thinking about now planning for service and planning for things. And if your loved one did not leave, specific instructions about how they wanted that done as well, that's going to involve a whole other host of things. So those are some of the practical things that, are a challenge. And then, of course, people come into support, the community support.
Right.
Sometimes, especially in that period after the funeral ends, the community support can be lacking for various reasons.
And so the church could play a role there, eh? Dr. Bandara, would you like to expand on that? What could the church do?
I actually think that what the church does comes in even before you lose the loved one, because that whole process of transition is something, and I think this is part of the really interesting work that Patrice does as a death doula. But that process of transition, I think, is where the church also has a very important role. Very often when I go and see patients, and I see that we are approaching an end of life. And it's amazing to me how many people don't even think of this. I say to them, has your pastor come? Have you told the folks at church? Has somebody from church? What is your religious leaning? What are your spiritual, leanings? How do you manage that bit? And people don't even think of that. So, even for, if you are part of a church community, to know who are the people even if they don't come to church, they're part of that community, to know who is in need and to offer that help.
Absolutely.
And then even in terms of, okay, so you may not necessarily be the pastor going to, to see the patient, but we talked about self-care. So somebody from the community can say, okay, do you need a break? Do you need to go to the supermarket? Do you need to go to the bank? I can come and sit with your loved one for a
Absolutely.
few minutes.
And that's very important for the self-care during the lifetime of the person who's critically ill, because sometimes we pay so much attention to them, we totally neglect ourselves. Counseling is also perhaps one of the things that maybe never really thought about, but during the time that your loved one is ill and it is a lot of psychological pressure and so on, counseling may be a good thing. Of course, most persons will tell you it all the time and so on, but it can help because it gives you some tools that you can cope. Any particular resource that you would recommend, any government agency, anything that persons can? Um, Before we go to that, let's look at one comment, and we want to applaud Cecilia Walsh from Bogwalk for being our sole comment person or commentator. That's just a word. She says, "Good evening, very educational and interesting topic. I have looked after my mom for years, and now my husband. It's very challenging. You have loved ones, you have to have love and patience, and you really just have to, even so, it's not easy, not an easy task. So she's asking a question: what if they die at home without seeing a doctor for a while? How do you respond to that? We also have a caller online. So while one of you is thinking of that, let's take the call that's online. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead. Are you hearing me? Good evening. Go ahead. We're not hearing.
To all three beautiful ladies, professionals. This, my name is Janet Witter, and I'm so engrossed in this evening's program that I need to call, just listening, And I just want to say thank you so much for this program this evening. It's very informative, and I wish we would have like a program running nationally for this kind of discussion, because there's so many families. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you loud and
We're
clear.
hearing.
Hello?
We're hearing.
Okay, there are so many families that suffer, and their loved ones suffer because they do not know what to do.
Yes,
I
yes.
myself have experienced caregiving, and it takes a lot out of you. As a matter of fact, you can die and leave the patient that you're taking care of,
Absolutely.
So I'm happy
Seen
to
that.
hear you on this evening with this very informative program. And I just want to bless you all, Dr. Joan, my beloved sister, and all the doctor and the other lady. Bless you all, and I hope you do another program like this. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much, Sister Janet. Good to hear you. Good to hear you. Thank you. And I know she has had her fair share too of having to care for her loved ones. So we were trying to respond to the question: what if the patient dies and without seeing a doctor for a while? Because sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Uh, we know
And
that the
this is
usual reporting to the police
right.
and making
So
contact with the doctor. Go ahead, doctor.
so the legal requirement is that the patient, so for me, once I've seen a patient within 6 months of their dying, it's I can
Right.
and I know what their condition is, I don't have a problem filling out the necessary paperwork, the cause of
Right,
death
right.
certificate. And I think by law it's 6 months. If it's more than 6 months, then you're running into difficult territory because it's up to the discretion of the doctor, really, right?
Right.
And so this is another reason why in Jamaica, if we don't have as a public service for public patients through the public
Mm-hmm.
health service, we don't have any home visit arrangement, right? So if you can't pay for it and you don't
Okay.
have a doctor who's going to do it out of the goodness of their heart, there is no way that a patient who cannot come to the hospital or to the health center is going to get seen. And so when
All right.
they die without
I'm
having seen the doctor, is going to be a problem. So
Thank
for
you
me,
so much. We are out of time. Oh my gosh.
oh,
It is really, really sad that we have to jump to the end because that's where we are at. And we want to thank you so, so very much for being here. I'm really sorry that, Doctor, that I had to just cut you off right there. But the time is, and we have to appreciate the time. I'm sure you understand that. But thank you so much, ladies, both of you, for sharing with us. And for the listeners, remember, if you have any questions of this nature in relation to the particular topic, or if you have any other concerns, you can make contact with Family Life Ministries. We are at 1 Cecilia Avenue. Our numbers are 876-920-1034. And so remember that you can watch us on our social media pages. But before we go, we want to say the Bible verse for this evening, Colossians 3 and verse 12. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Thanks again to our guests, Dr. Kanchana Bandara and Miss Patrice Dwyer. We're so very happy that you were able to join us. Thanks to our listeners, and thanks to our show producer, Kathy Gale, studio facilitator, Darren Mitchell, and of course, you, our listeners. I am Joan Pinkney. Good evening and have a great rest of the week.